Good evening, everyone. I am Vaishali and I'll be your host for today. It is my pleasure to introduce you to our guest speaker for today's online session on Open Source Unveiled Step into the World of Open Source. So please welcome our guest speaker, Mr. Vinit Shahdeo. I would also like to mention that he is currently serving as a software engineer at Postman, a leading collaboration platform for API development. Sir has made significant contributions to numerous repositories and mentored several students under the Google Summer of Code program. With his immense knowledge and experience in the tech industry, Sir has become a prominent figure in this field of open source. Today, he will be sharing his insights and guiding our audience on how to get started in open source. His vast experience and expertise will help us unravel the mysteries of open source and take us on a journey of discovery. We are indeed fortunate to have him with us today, and I'm sure his session will be an invaluable learning experience for all of us. So, without further ado, let's welcome Mr. Vinit Shahdeo.
Hello, hey, hi, Vaishali. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Yeah. Thank you, Vaishali. Thank you so much for the introduction and giving me this opportunity. Yeah, we'll start now. So, I think like most of you who are watching this YouTube live must be familiar with GitHub, and they must be knowing like what is GitHub and what purpose it serves. But the whole idea of this live session is to discuss like how you can get most out of GitHub, because like I believe like everyone who are in college and who are into tech, at least they will have a GitHub account. But when it comes to getting most out of the GitHub is the place where we need to discuss with someone and learn from someone who has already been there on GitHub. So I'll start now. So I want to start with the time when I started my GitHub journey, right? Back in VIT, when I was in second year, I guess, I started my GitHub, right? I opened an account. I learned from seniors that okay, there is something called GitHub where you can push some code. So this is the place when I started doing GitHub thing, right? So here, if you see in 2016, I just made like few commits, right? It's like just four commits, and uh, because that time I wasn't proficient and I was not doing much, right? So all I have to say is the first lesson over here is like you can start any point of time, and it doesn't matter that when you are starting you should be proficient in coding and you must be working on some great project, right? So if you see my initial projects were just calculator and whatever I was doing in college, right? Again in 17, that was my third year, I did some more code, right? I posted, and then 18 little more, right? 18 was the time when I was going through the placement. I didn't make much contribution there, right? For the obvious reason I was busy doing DSA and I was not focusing on development part. In 19 was the year I graduated. Then I made few more commits and so on and so forth, right? That's how it went, right? So the first lesson is if you have GitHub account, no matter when you are starting, what kind of code you are pushing, it's your journey, right? You can start any day. You can push whatever you are working, right? So for example, if you have been working on any software project, any of your J component projects, let's put it on GitHub, right? You might think that okay, this is not something great thing and I should not push it on GitHub. That's fine, it's your journey. Whatever you are coding, let's push it, let's create a repo and we'll push it, right? I'll talk more about that in some time. So now let's talk about like once you have GitHub account, then what next, right? What you can do. Okay, so I have a GitHub account. Then as a beginner, I might not be collaborating with others because I might not get opportunity because let's say I don't know much about tech, I don't know much about JavaScript, I don't know much about Python. Okay, but I'm in college, I'm doing some project. Let's push that, right? So if you see like when I was in college, whatever project we have been doing, I used to push that to GitHub, right? So I think this project is DBMS project, which is quite popular. Every second person in VIT was doing library management system, right? What I did, I just whatever code we have written, all those reports and all, I pushed it to GitHub, right? The another good point is like whenever you are pushing something to GitHub, right? Make sure that you have a proper README to tell about what is this project, right? All about how you can run that project, etc. So the thing is, your README is like window to your house, right? I mean, if you do not have window and doors to your house, no one will enter. So that is the philosophy here. So README should explain every single detail about your process. So like here, I mentioned that what is the feature, how you can run it, what softwares you need, etc. Right? So now this helps people to come to your project and try that out, right? If somebody is interested in this project, they'll come, they'll know, okay, what we are doing, how I can install it. They will clone it, they will try it, and that's how you'll network with the people, and that's how you build projects on public, right? And you build projects on GitHub, right? Another thing is, let's say if you have done some project and if you are making it live, right? So there are a lot of free cloud providers, right? Like Netlify, Heroku was also free up to some time, Versal, etc. Right? So you can actually use those. So just a sec, I think I'm getting a call from organizer. Hey folks, I'm back. I'm sorry. So I just got a call from the organizer. So my actually the slide was not changing due to some issues. So now we are back to the my screens. I'll start again. Like I mean, because I'll just try to brief whatever we have discussed so far. Right? Otherwise, like you might lose context what I have been discussing so far. Right? So the my first lesson which I learned in open source world was like you can start anytime and you should never compare your first chapter with someone's last chapter, right? That means that I started back in 2016. Then I didn't have much expertise. I just simply did some calculator. I posted. As you can see, there are just three dots. But as I progressed in my career, there are few more contribution which I started doing. And if you go to 2020, it will be little more, so on and so forth, right? And the second thing which I was talking about is like, whatever you have been working on so far, right? No matter it's a big project, complex project, or it's your curriculum project, let's push it to GitHub, right? So GitHub is the place where you share code, where you build something, right? So, for example, I was giving an example of our DBMS project that we did long back, right? So I added that project completely. But this project, whenever you add some project, have a README, right? README should explain every detail about it, as in like how to run this project, what are the features, etc. Right? So that's what I have mentioned here. Next good thing is like if you are building some project and pushing it to GitHub and making it live, right? uh, it's always good to have demo links, right? So in case like if you have built some website, post it on Netlify, Versal, etc. There are so many free cloud providers, right? And as a GitHub student pack, you also get a lot of free services. I think DigitalOcean is also included, right? If somebody is not familiar with GitHub student developer pack, go out and check. That is very useful for all the students across the world, right? You can get a lot of free subscription for DigitalOcean. You can get free .tech domains, etc. That helps you to develop better, right? You will get access to a lot of utilities that you can use in your day-to-day development, right? For us, like for working professional, we have to pay. We pay for our domain, we pay for our cloud services, we pay for storage, etc. Right? So for you, there is nothing blocker. You don't have to spend money. You will get everything with GitHub Student Developer Pack. You just have to use that. And once you host it on let's say some virtual app or some Heroku app, etc., have the links here, right? So I want to give one more full-fledged idea of how does a repository should look like, right? So we'll take one example and then we'll see like what else we can add to a single repository, right? So let's take the top one, the peerless readme batch. Okay, so here is the about section. You should always include this about section, and that is very, very important. This is like, metadata for your project, which helps in even searching. Like when people are searching about some project in Google, in GitHub, These things will be considered, right? And then there are some topics. These topics are kind of hashtags or keywords for your project, right? Whatever this project is all about, let's add that, because that helps to again discover. When people are exploring on GitHub, your repo will be shown to them. Then comes like these are the things when you, let's say when you make release, make sure that you are using the release feature, right? Okay, so I made a release on July 2nd. That's appearing here, right? Because once you make the release, all the people who have started this project or who are watching this project, they'll come to know that okay, there is a release for this project. Then in case if you want someone to sponsor you, you can add those links, right? And if you see, this project has all the information. It does nothing. It's a very simple thing, like there is a website called Peerlist where you can build your profile like LinkedIn, right? So for example, this is my profile over here. And what I did, like I made a readme batch for them, right? Readme batch is basically that the batches, the small batches that you add it on your GitHub readme, right, to redirect to your basically Peerless profile. So I made it. I made it open source, right? And added everything like how you can use it, what are different styles, and even the API description, right? And how you can set it up locally. That okay, first you have to install the dependency, then you have to do npm start, then you'll find all your app running locally, right? And then added one app where you can generate, right? So why I am telling this, because if I do not put all this information, no one is gonna try this, right? I mean, they don't have time to figure out like, okay, let's go to package.json and see what how I can run this process. And the side effect of this was like when I put this project on GitHub, I made it live. The official peer list people, they included it in their platform. So if you go here and if you check the tools, you'll find it here, readme batch. And they have given a credit that okay, we thank you for creating this markdown batch generator, right? So the next learning is opportunities can come anytime when you are contributing on GitHub, right? So you build for public, and people will notice you and they will let you know that okay, they like your project, and now that is the something that they will be interested in, and they will look into that, and that will get included in their official platforms, right? So that was one good example, right? So whenever you figure out something that okay, this is one feature which I can add to some product. Let's build it, put it on GitHub. People will notice, and that gets added to their platform. You never know. What if they offer you a job? What if they offer you an internship, right? So that's how it works, right? So it was an example of like how you can utilize GitHub and how you can it can give you more idea around to connect with people. Let's give take more examples, right? So as a developer, like whenever you are doing something, right, you are celebrating your friend's birthday. Okay, let's build something, some tool to wish him happy birthday. Or you are going for wedding. Let's build simple website for your friend's wedding, for your sister's wedding, for your brother's wedding. So that's what like I have been doing, and people have been noticing, right? So I made the website for my elder sisters, and now a lot of people they fork it and they use it for their own wedding, right? So the thing is, as a developer, whatever you want to build, whether it's a hobby project, it's a product, it's a tool, or it's a utility for any online service, let's add it to GitHub, right? So that's one way. And there are other ways to contribute also, right? So it's not only about writing code. So you can also take part in discussion which is going on. Let's say I'm not very good coder, but I have a good understanding of products. I have a good understanding of architecture, infrastructure. You can take part on discussions, right? So let's take some example. So if you go here, like recently we opened a project for Google Summer of Code, right? So here if you see, we started a discussion like how we can build this and what are the different tech stack that you can use to build open web search, right? The people have started commenting here. They came here and they were sharing their own ideas, right? Okay, this is how we can do. So all these things helps you to connect with better people, and contribute to open source, right? So if you come here, see a lot of people are giving their own ideas, like we can build this way or we can build that way. So GitHub discussion is another good place where you can go and contribute in a way, right? Another way is, let's say, if you find something which is not working well for any product, go there and raise a issue, right? You can file an issue. So that is one thing which I have been doing. Like whenever I find something which is not working, I go there and I file a bug, right? So for example, if I find something which is not working as expected in AWS, or maybe something, let's take example of batches, right? I might have went there and added an issue, right? Okay, so this is not working. Help me fix this. So that's how it works, right? So all you have to do is like go there, figure out like what you want to do. So here, if you see this batch was not working, I simply went ahead and I added an issue that, okay, this is not working. Let's fix this. So this is the way you contribute on the open source, right? So it's not only about writing code; it's about collaborating. Right? It's a collaboration platform. That's how you collaborate, right? Another way is like, let's say if you are really not good at coding, and there could be case like with automation coming in, chat gpt coming in, right? We might not be interested always in learning code. We might be thinking that I just want to be creative and I want to use the all the available tools, basically follow no coding platforms, right? In such cases, like if you are very much familiar with writing documentation, you can go ahead and write documentation for a lot of online library which are available, right? So there are a lot of libraries without documentation. You can go ahead and you can write documentation for them. A lot of my friends, they contribute to Node.js and some of the Facebook libraries, mostly around documentation, right? So these are different ways to collaborate. Now, without wasting much time, I'll also talk about what are the different programs that can help you to get onboarded to open source, right? So as a student, I think the first good program is Hacktoberfest, right? Hacktoberfest, you guys might be knowing about this, right? So Hacktoberfest is a program which is supported by DigitalOcean. Here, all the beginners come and they raise four pull requests in the month of October, and in return they get swag. The good part is they return an experience. They get an experience of contributing to open source, right? So Hacktoberfest is one where you can start your journey. Then there are so many other programs, right? Then there is a Google Summer of Code. So you guys must be knowing about Google Summer of Code, right? So this is one of the premium open source program, which is again supported by Google, right? So here what happens is like there are a lot of organizations which are there, and you every organization puts some ideas for projects and all, and you can also have your own idea and you have to submit your proposals. If that organization admin slash mentors like your idea, like your proposal, they will shortlist you, and finally Google will announce the result. And for next 12 weeks you'll be working for that particular idea, right? With the mentors, with the admins, etc. And you'll also get paid for that. Google pays you a really good stipend for that. And the good part is that you get a really good experience, right? So I can give you some example. So in the last GSOC, we are building async diff. Right? Async diff is nothing one project where we are trying to generate a tool to basically find the diff between two async open APIs. Right? So async APIs are there, but there were no diffing tools. So it's a very simple idea. All we had to do is like take do JSON or YML, find the difference between these two. Right? This was the idea, and we ended up getting really good contribution over here. And if you see now, this has a lot of people who have been using this project as of now, so we can actually check that how it's going now. So I'll have to find that. I just want to give you an idea, right, how it works. So I think here. So this was a project which is started from scratch, right? And the guy who was contributing to us, now you can see the state of this project, right? So it's a full-fledged open source project, and people have been coming here contributing, right? And it's a library which is available with npm, and a lot of people are downloading and using it, right? So, uh, so the idea was that once you start contributing to some open source project, you get a lot of opportunities, right? I think the person who have been contributing with us, I remember like my org admin, they also offered jobs to them, internship and then full time offers, right? Because they were contributing really well to the projects, right? So this is the idea. So if you see, the state of this project is really great, right? It has all the tests, it has all the documentation, all the features available, right? There are still a lot of issues which is open, right? And people are coming here and they are, they can start contributing. So see, a lot of people, they are showing their interest, that that's how I can build. And you guys can also find some projects, comment there, and then start contributing, right? So as I was talking about Google Summer of Code, right? So this year also we have been doing some projects. So again, I want to talk about like how we can, how the things work. So let me. Okay, so I think my internet is not really good today. Yeah, it's there. So go to Open API web search. So this is the project that we have been tracking for. Like I am personally mentoring this project for this Google Summer of Code, right? So this is a raw project, right? So we had an idea, we put it on for Google Summer of Code. The idea was that we want to build a search engine for Open APIs, something like you can say Google for Open APIs, right? To find APIs. I added my ideas, documented it here. Now a lot of people started showing interest that okay, this is how we can build, and they started submitting proposals. And if you see, I haven't written a single line of code yet, but the community will come, they'll write the code, and we'll just review, we'll discuss, because the idea is mine, but the contribution will be there, right? They will know how to write the code, and I know what we want to build, right? So we added the issues and people came and they started discussing that okay, this is how we can build. So that's the benefit of learning in public, benefit of using GitHub. You find a lot of people who are there to contribute, and this is the project which we opened for Google Summer of Code. Right? So the few tips for Google Summer of Code: be early. So this year it has already started, and the deadline for submitting proposals is over now. It was 4th of April. But for next year, start from now. Go to Google Summer of Code website, find the organization, right? The previous year's organization. For example, Postman was one of them, uh, TensorFlow, etc. Right? You can actually find all the organization over here. GSOC organization, we can search. Yeah, program organization, and then look for the different organization which interests you, right? So here you will find all the organizations. You can also filter based on your interest. Let's say I'm interested in web. I'll click this, I'll go through each of them, and even like I can filter out the organization which has JavaScript specific process, or PHP specific process, or Node.js specific process. Based on your interest, go there, look at to their project, and then start getting in touch with them, take up some beginner friendly issues, and talk to their mentors, maintainers, and start setting up their project in your local machine and see where all you can improve. In case if you do not understand the code, read the test, read the close pull request, talk to the maintainers, mentors, ask for help, right? Open an issue or open a discussion thread with them. You'll find all the information available here, right? So that's how you contribute, right? So this is and for GSOC, like once you started a channel with the maintainers, admins, and then ask them to assign you some beginner friendly issues, work on that. And in case like if you want few more suggestions from them, get in call with them and start contributing there. And once GSOC is near, then start giving your proposal ideas. Once you write the proposal, make sure that you are adding proper timeline, proper text tag, proper way to do that. And before that, whatever you have made the contribution to that project, include the links to them, submit your proposal. There are high chances that you will get selected, right? Because you have been already contributing to that project, and you are the right person to contribute, right? So this is for Google Summer of Code. Actually, for Google Summer of Code, it requires another life to talk just about the Google Summer of Code, but that's not the agenda today. We want to talk about different things, so I won't talk much about this. But I'm always available on Twitter in case if you have any doubt around this. Apart from that, there are other programs also, right? For example, MLH Fellowship. That's another good open source program where you can get shortlisted, work on projects. So you just note down these programs, and you are just a Google search away, search it on Google, and you'll find every detail about that, right? Then for people who are into writing documentation or into blogging, technical writing, etc., there is Google season of docs where you can go and just work on documentation. That's it, and you will get good exposure there. You'll be recognized in the open source world. And then there is girl script summer of code, which is by girl script India. And that's another good part there. Individual maintainers add their project, and people from different parts of country, and even outside the country, they come, they join, they contribute, right? And there are a lot of university specific programs also, right? So when I say university specific programs, I mean like Kharagpur Winter of Code, which is organized by IIT Kharagpur. And there is some IIT Kalyani Winter of Code. So you can just search like what are the different open source program, and you can go there and you can work on them. Then Forces, yeah, one of the very popular open source organization, right? They have something called that's called Open Hit. Sorry, Code Hit. I forgot. So Code Hit. You can even take part in that, right? That is also one of the open source program. You can search and you can go there and start contributing, right? Few more things to note. Now you might be struggling to find really good projects to work on, right? So there are few websites that can help you do that. So there is something called 24 pull requests. You can search and you can find some really good projects to contribute, right? So you come here and log in with your GitHub, and you will start finding some of the good projects, and that will give you some suggestions to do that, right? But all these things you can do over on GitHub only, right? So go to GitHub. It has a lot of powerful things that you can do, right? You can click on the explore, and then you can start exploring the different projects from here, right? Okay, so come here, and then what are the trending ideas these days, what are the trending topics, trending projects, trending developers, and you can go and you can filter out based on your interest, based on your language, all those things, right? And then you can start contributing, right? So this was about like the different programs that we have, how you can utilize GitHub. The other part is of it is like there are a lot of good practices when you contribute on GitHub, right? So good practices like having proper readme, having license, having contributing docs, etc., right? So for every project you can add license. Generally it's MIT license, which is the most free form license, I would say. Some people use Apache, etc. So based on that you can create your repository and add the licenses, right? Coming to the next point, there are other things that can help you to gain attraction to your projects, right? Open some issues, label it, right? You can find some good first issues and all, right? So there are some labels which is reserved for beginners, right? For example, good first issue. So whenever you visit to good first issues, these will be the issues which is very beginner friendly. So if you come here, so this will be a very beginner friendly issue, which is just normal one or two line of code change. You can contribute for such issues. So you can find for good first, search for good first issues on GitHub. You'll find a lot of them. Good first issues on GitHub, right? So as a maintainer, whenever we open uh, issues, right, we always keep in mind that okay, let's onboard more beginners, and we add a label to good as a good first issue. So you can go to this website, and based on your language, you can filter out some really good first issues. And you see these are like very popular projects, right? So the dev2 you guys might have been using, right? Next.js, layer 5, etc., and you can go there and just find the good first issues. Good first issues meaning that those are beginner friendly issues. So I landed here, and then I can filter out the good first issues for myself, right? So I can go here in the label and I can search for good first issue. So this is for newcomers. I came here. Okay, these are four issues, very basic issues, right? So CSS, you just have to fix the CSS styling, and you will be done, right? You will raise a PR for this. Read this, make the change, raise the PR, and you will be happily onboarded to GitHub. You have contributed something over here, right? So as a project maintainer, everyone keep in mind that they open some issues, they review the pull request. In case, let's say, if you are not into writing code and all, you want to review the pull request, you can go to free, I mean, some of the projects of your idea, and go here and start reviewing the code. Okay, whether this change makes sense or not. So the way I have reviewed, right, I added some comments and all. So that's also another way of contributing, right? And whenever you are pushing project to GitHub, the first thing which I mentioned was like have proper readme. And then if you are looking for contribution from the community, right, add a proper contributing doc, add code of conduct, right. Contributing doc is like how they can contribute, right. So how basically what is the practice that you follow, that okay, I follow these branching strategy, you have to do this way, that way, code of conduct, right. This is important for following the open source ethics, right. This is you are something that you are doing in public, and you should not hurt anyone. So all those things are, goes unsaid, but we should, it's always good to have this, right, because this makes your project look more appealing to the people who are visiting your project. So these were the ideas. And another good part is like whenever you find some project really good, you can fork it. Forking means just you are creating a copy of it under your profile. Starring is something like liking, right? So the way you like Instagram post, similar thing here, right? uh, then if you really like the projects, you can sponsor the authors, right? Now coming to what GitHub has to offer you, right, as a student. So the first thing is like GitHub student developer pack. This is very powerful thing. Like if you are not familiar with this, I highly recommend you to go ahead and check this. For all the students who are watching this stream, go and check this, right. So you'll get a lot of free thing like StreamYard, Namecheap, Azure, I don't know, so many things, right. Figma and all, which helps you to build in public, right. Sign up for this. Then there is something called GitHub Campus Expert, right. That's a good program that I think all of you should try if you are into open source and all, right. So you can go and apply to become a campus expert. uh, you get training from GitHub, and you will become a face of GitHub in your college, in your community, right. So that's the second thing that you can try out. uh, then there is something called, GitHub externship. What is this? This is again something similar to internship, but this is totally sort of remote thing. So you can read about this, and you can, see how you can apply. So I think there is already, okay, so this is for summer cohort 2022. So once it starts for this year, you will be able to find all those information over here, right. So the good way to keep yourself updated is like follow some people who are in too much into open source, or follow the official handles of these things like GitHub India, GitHub, Google Server of Code, Google Open Source, etc. on Twitter, because they will keep on posting the timelines about the different programs, etc. Right? So that's how uh, it helps you to, grow publicly, learn in public, right. So this was about GitHub. So there is one more program that GitHub has. That's the most elite program that you'll ever find. It's the GitHub Star program, right? So again, this is all about, notifying some of the GitHub users across the world who are doing, who are helping people to get started. And it's like, I'll give another example, right? So the way YouTube appreciate their creator is by giving them gold play button or silver play button. In a similar way, GitHub appreciate the people by giving them GitHub star badge, right? So there are a lot of star across the world, and I'm fortunate to be one of them from India, right? So there is not more than 100 people across the world, and you can get in touch with any one of us who are here, whom you see on the screen, right. And you can learn from us, you can collaborate with us for any project and all that. So once you start doing things on GitHub, right, GitHub will recognize your effort someday. They will let you know that okay, you have been doing great, so let's have you, right. I mean, let's have you as a GitHub star, and you can influence more people. They will provide you a lot of good resources, and you'll be part of GitHub team where you can talk to them for anything. You'll be beta tester of all the features, and uh, there are you'll get a lot of facts, a lot of good experience and all, right. So this is one thing that you become once you, so this is an eventual thing, right. Once you start doing a lot of things on GitHub, someday GitHub will recognize you, right. So this is another good thing about being on GitHub, right. Now coming to, I think like these are most of the things I have covered. Now, one more thing which I want to say is like, it's always good to scroll GitHub and Instagram as a student at least. because once you spend more time on GitHub, you'll discover a lot of good things, a lot of good projects, and a lot of good people to interact with. So the way you maintain a streak on Snapchat, it's time to maintain a streak on GitHub, right? So if I show you, like, those green dots on GitHub, right, that helps you to be consistent and learn something every day. So as you can see, there are a lot of green dots which shows that, okay, the days when I have contributed, right? So I try to maintain a streak on GitHub, not on Snapchat. So that was the one last thing which I wanted to share. I think, yeah, these were the things which I want to discuss with you. So now you can build from here. So just maintain a streak on GitHub, not on Snapchat. Yeah. So this was it about the today's life. Now it's time for some questions. So I'll appreciate if you have any question and you can ask the question directly. Uh,
Yes, I would like to request our audience, like if they have any doubts or questions, they can put it in the comment section.
yeah, so I'm happy to answer all the questions that you might have.
So we have our first question. That, sir,
Mhm,
as a beginner for me, GSOC is very much overwhelming. What will be
mhm.
your advice on that?
Correct. Uh, Dharans, if I have pronounced your correctly, so that's a really good question. I appreciate you asking this question, right? So, I understand like GSOC is very overwhelming and it's something that requires a lot of efforts. But as this year, right, the deadline is already over, but you'll be getting started now, right? So just learn the skills first. Let's say if I'm into JavaScript or I'm into Python, I'll learn something and then I'll start building something in the public, right? And the next part is, you finalize some of the organization, right, which is doing great in your field, right? If you are from JavaScript, maybe Postman, maybe a Sync API, maybe some other, right? Ankita.b, ankitaB.org, etc. And go there, talk to the people, and start contributing, right? So see, like, it's not a single day thing. It requires a lot of effort. So from now you get started. Like whatever you are doing, put it on GitHub. Every day you make some progress, and try to learn the skills and learn the better practices, right? So as a student, what you do is like you just make the things happen somehow, right? But you never follow the better practices. I mean, at least for me, that's what has happened, right? So once you code in public, you open your code, ask people to review. They will review your code. They'll teach you that, okay, this is not linted, you have to add proper comments, documents, etc. So for you, for GSOC, the first thing is like, today go there, watch some videos, read some blogs, right? Uh, there are a lot of GSOC alumni. Even I might have written some blog around GSOC, right? And learn from their experiences, like how they have done, right? And then go and check out those projects. Try to set those projects locally. If you're not able to do as a beginner, that's totally fine. But check what technologies it's using, right? So if it's using Python, and I'm interested in Python, let's learn Python, right? It's not something that you have to learn everything. Learn whatever is required and whatever is something that you are interested in, right? And then build from there. So day one, just to get inspiration, learn from all people's experiences, read some blogs, watch some videos. Day two, start exploring. Day three, or day seven, come to know that, okay, this is what I have to learn to be on Google Summer of Code. Start learning that. After 3 months, once you have learned that, start contributing, and eventually next year GShock will be announced, and then you will be a ideal candidate for any organization. I hope that answers your question. In case if you have any further follow-up question, you can always ask me, maybe through my email or Twitter, etc.
Okay, sir, thank you. So the next question is, what are the prerequisites for contributing?
Right, so that's again good question. So the prerequisite is like, the first thing is like, you should know how does Git work, how does GitHub works, right? So be familiar with Git and GitHub, the normal workflow, how to create pull requests, how to take a clone, and how to create a branch, how to add code, push it to remote, and create the pull request. So that's the prerequisite. So go ahead and check out how to use Git and GitHub, set up Git locally, have a GitHub account and try to open some pull request in some of the open source project, right? So you can find. I'll send one link in the chat that might help you to find some beginner friendly projects. So I'll send it at the end, right? So there are some of the open source beginner friendly projects are there.
Okay, sir. So next question we have, how do open source program handle security vulnerabilities and bug fixes?
That's a good question, right? So if I understood this question correctly, so how does the open source softwares? So it's so the thing is, the developer who's writing the code, if he or she knows about the bug, they won't write only, right? I mean, no one will write a buggy code, right? So that's how it works. The community will point out that okay, there is a bug, and they create a bug, and then if they want, they themselves can go and fix that, or people from community will come and fix. Talking about the security issues, right? So I think GitHub has a lot of really good security scanner, right? Which depend on what is there, and GitHub itself has the security scanner which gives us warning whenever we are committing some of the malicious code, or we are leaking out some of the tokens, right? Apart from that, there are a lot of security researcher on hackathon, cobalt, and a lot of organization, they follow the bug bounty programs, and people who are filing a security vulnerability, they get awarded for that, right? And the open source people are very kind enough, if they find something is leaking out of your code, there is some security violation, they'll let you know, they'll raise a PR, they'll create an issue, they'll start a discussion thread with you, and people are happy to answer that.
Yes, sir. So the next question is, what are your favorite open source programs and why?
This is interesting question, right? So I think for me, the I mean, the one of the most favorite is Google Summer of Code, because I have been doing Google Summer of Code since long, and the good part is like there we get support from Google, and as an organization, whenever you are building some projects, the outcome is really good, right? So in span of 12 weeks, we build something which can help others. So this year we are building Google for open APIs, right? So it's a search engine for APIs. That's what we are trying to build. And if you are able to build this, this is gonna help a lot of people, right? So now if you think, when I say we are trying to build Google for open APIs, you think, okay, there will be just a search engine where I can go and search APIs, right? But that's not the motivation behind that, right? So what our idea is, like, once we have the data set of all the APIs, it opens up to researchers, API producers, consumers to to generate insights from those data set, right? So I mean, how people are using APIs, what kind of practices they are following, whether they are having health endpoint or not, right? So there are a lot of good things about that. So you can actually check out my blog. I mentioned like what we want to get from this open API web search, right? So in a layman terms, it's a Google for open APIs. So why I like Google Summer of Code is this reason, right? Because we can make a change with this, right? With all the programs we can, but Google Summer of Code is the most popular one. The reason being is we receive a lot of proposals across the world, a lot of good students and contributors there, and we get support from community, and we complete the project. So I think the sustainability is the difficult part in any open source programs, and Google Summer of Code is the place where we get better candidates, I would say, and better crowd to manage. Other programs are really good, but they runs in they are all are good, like, but I'm not part of all of them. I'm part of Google Summer of Code, and there are some more programs where I'm not really active. So GSOC is my favorite one.
Okay, sir. So next question is, what kind of employment opportunities could be there for open source for students and how can we approach?
Another interesting question, right? So I think on open source, how it works is like once you start doing the things, right, you network with a lot of people. So let's say if you're contributing to Postman, you are contributing to TensorFlow, you are contributing to GitHub itself, right? You get to know their maintainers, mentors, project admins, right? Then you can pitch yourself that okay, I want to do internship. There are a lot of people, they even we have done that. Okay, so in your company, if there is vacancy, could you please refer me? They'll be happy to refer you if there is a vacancy and that's matching your qualification, right? That's one. Second thing is there are a lot of open source program that offers you internship at the end, right? So Google Summer of Code is also kind of internship because you get paid, you get a stipend. Then there is Wash Asia Code Hit. Uh, and there are some specific program also like MLH fellowship, right? That opens up, at the end of the program, there could be chance that that organization might offer you an internship slash full-time opportunity, right? Third thing is connect with the better people to build with. Right? So on open source, you can find some people who are running their own startup, running their own micro SaaS companies, and if they are interested in hiring you, they will hire you. But things take time. You cannot expect something in a day or in a month. It takes years to be at that place. I must say this. uh, the other good part is like when you are active on open source and you add your GitHub profile in your resume, right? That's your portfolio. As a developer, that's our portfolio, right? I mean, once you add it on your resume, that makes a good impression on the recruiter, right? If they are checking out your profile, they'll know that okay, you have been active, you have been doing something because that's your proof of work, right? So GitHub is proof of work, right? So let's say I write in my resume that I have made a self-driving car. What's the proof, right? But if I'm writing I have built a calculator, here is link to my calculator code on GitHub. That's an authentic thing, right?
Okay, sir. So the next question is, how much DSA helped you in getting placement in company like Postman or any other startup?
uh, Another good question, right? So DSA is really important here, not only for Postman, for any other startup or for any other company, right? So I would say one thing, right? So before becoming software developer, right, you have to become a software engineer, right? And a software engineer is one who knows fundamentals of computer. Fundamental of computer means data structure algorithms, OOPS, DBMS, computer networks, uh, operating system, right? So these are really, really important. If you don't know this, how you can become a software developer, right? You can become, but you will face a lot of difficulties when you grow in your career, right? So I'll give more examples. So you might be knowing that, React is built by Facebook, right? React is a front end tool, like where you build front end. Now, Facebook will never hire someone who can use React for them. They will hire someone who can build React for them, right? Understand the difference using React slash building React. Postman will never hire someone to use Postman. They will hire someone to build Postman, right? So that's why they focus on DSA, right? So DSA is the building block. So if you know the basic DSA, if you are good at coding, meaning that you can switch to any technology, right? Because it keeps changing. I started with HTML, now I'm working with React. There was no chat GPT, nothing. Now chat GPT has came, right? So the thing is, DSA is very important. Fundamental is very important for any company, but there are still some startups, they don't ask you DSA questions in interview, but they are very few. If you are in VIT, if you are expecting if you're going for the campus placement, then there will be very few companies who won't focus on, very few, I mean I can name in yeah, 2 to 5, not more than that, right? So most of the company will focus on DSA, right? So it's good to focus on DSA. That helps you to get better job. So it's very, very important, very important. For Postman, as the guy has mentioned, Postman, I would say the first round is on HackerRank slash Hacker. So there will be DSA questions, coding algorithm questions, and there will be some MCQs which is based on OS, computer networks, other fundamental, and then there will be some coding round, system design round, HM round, etc. Right? So on that, like the mostly it will be resume based and whatever you have worked on it. So there will be some live coding where they might ask you some questions to build something, and you'll be pair programming with the interview. But for companies like Fang and startups like Cred, Razorpay, etc. Right? It's mostly like the first round is going to be DSA and then little bit of development. Right? So it's like 70-30%, right? For bigger companies, it's 100% DSA and fundamentals. For companies like unicorn startups and others, it's 70-30. Sometimes it's 80-20, right? 80% of DSA, 20% of development stuff.
Okay, sir. So the next question is, what are some challenges you have encountered while working on open source projects, and how did you overcome them?
That's another good question, right? So the like personally the most challenging for me was to manage time, right? So once you start working, then you have to work for your company, and then also you have to maintain your open source projects and contribute there. So how do I see it? Like, whatever I am working currently, I try to find opportunity on them, and spend some time on weekends to do some open source project, and contribute there, and be part of the programs like Google Summer of Code. And in terms of challenge, managing time, being sustainable, right? And the third thing is, like, you might get bored. After some time you'll feel that, okay, it's okay, let's not code, right? But you have to code for yourself, you have to code for a reason, right? When you code for a reason, like, let's say you have a clear mindset that, okay, I'm building this because this is gonna help this way. For example, Google for open APIs, we are building this not to create another search engine, but we are building because this will help researchers, this will help us to basically make a revelation in a way people find APIs, right? So have your vision, then I guess there won't be any challenges.
Okay.
Mhm.
So we'll be taking our last two questions from now on. So the next question is, how can open source software be used in education or research contexts, and what resources are available to support these efforts?
That's another great question, right? So there are a lot of open source programs around research and education, right? So I'll give you one example, right? So you might be into machine learning and all those stuff, right? So there are a lot of models which is based on English, right? And most of the models, the machine learning models, they only understand English language, right? But there are programs where Indians are trying to build, models, AI models in local languages, right? There is one project called Bhashini that you can try out. You can search it on Google. So there they are trying to build AI models in local language like Bhojpuri, and whatever, like Maghi, etc. Right? So these are something which are helping in for the research and education for our country. And there are some Howard programs which is, they have been putting some of the, even IISc Bangalore, right? They have put a lot of algorithms which is written in C++, and that's open source, right? And they use it for their research purpose, writing white paper, thesis, etc. So you can search about this. You can go to these organizations or any research organization, check their GitHub profile. You'll find some of the really good projects.
Yes, sir. So the next question is, you completely knew basic concepts before contributing, or was it simultaneous?
Uh, so it was actually, the part of the journey, right? So I learned, I contributed. So it's like every day you learn, every day there is something to learn, and you make your things better, right? So if you compare like the code that you are writing today and the code that you'll write after 4 years has a lot of difference, right? Because as you grow, you learn more things, you write better code. So it's a part of learning, it's a part of journey.
Yes, sir. So we'll be taking our last question for today's session, and it is, any tips to manage competitive coding and open source development?
This is good question, right? So for open source development, right? So I'll tell you one thing. So competitive coding is like your food, right? You do DSA, normal coding every day, like you eat everything. Open source development is like having food outside VIT gate, right? So coding is having food in your mess. Open source is like having food in your outside VIT, right? So you go sometimes, you have good food, you come back. Like that you can manage, right? So in a week you can spend some time for open source on weekends whenever you are doing some projects, right? The college curriculum projects, push it on GitHub, put it there, try to maintain them. But coding is something which I recommend you to do every day, so that's gonna help you to get better job. And so whatever coding that you are doing, right, competitive code, let's say you are solving lead code problems, whatever you are coding, push it on GitHub, create a repo called lead code solutions, and keep pushing every day. Like, this is my version of solution of to some problem, this is my version of solution of case some problem, like that, right? So
Yes,
that
sir.
you'll be familiar with GitHub and there will be nothing new.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. This concludes today's online session on Open Source Unveiled, Step into the World of Open Source. I hope you all found Mr. Vinit Shahdeo's insight and guidance on getting started in open source informative and helpful. I would also like to express our heartfelt gratitude to Mr. Vinit Shahdeo for sharing his vast knowledge and expertise with us. I would like to express my gratitude to all of you who joined us today. Your active participation and engagement have made this event a truly enriching experience. I hope you leave today's session with a better understanding of open source and the confidence to step into the world of open source. So now please wait a few minutes for the attendance link to be shared. Thank you all once again, and we hope to see you at our future events. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today.
Thank you, Vaishali. Thank you everyone for watching us. For anything, you can reach out to me on Twitter if you have any doubts, any confusion. I'm happy to answer you there. Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Bye
Thank you
bye.
so much.
Bye everyone.